Darcy blows.
Episode 144 in the books.
144. How about that?
That's right. And Pete, I had a guy yesterday asking us about the advertising for the show.
Mm-hmm.
And, one guy was from Switzerland and he runs a big media company. And the other guy runs a big one out of New York. And they put ads in all these live reads and everything else from radio to podcast to TV. And he said, so do you think you guys can do
I got a funny feeling that's not going so well right now, Jared.
Yeah, he's gone.
He's kind of back, but he's kind of bouncing around. I don't know if this is starting off too well at all, for God's sakes. There you are, John.
He's back.
You're back.
I'm back. Was I disappeared?
Yes, you disappeared for about 30 seconds.
Huh. Well, I guess
so you met a guy. You got the Swiss guy and you got another guy.
Yep. So I met a guy who knows a guy.
Who knows a guy?
Who knows a guy?
He knows that guy.
Welcome to the Rebel's Edge, folks. I'm John Najarian. He's Pete Najarian. Jared is handling all the mistakes and being blamed for all the mistakes on the show so far today.
Way to go, Jared.
Way to go, Jared. But don't worry, Jared. The world needs ditch diggers, too. Sentenced men younger than him to the electric chair. Didn't want to do it. Felt I owed it to him. Judge Schmales is the best.
Schmales.
But let's dive right in, guys, to the macro minute. We have a serious rally underway. Dow up 1%, S&P up 1.3, NASDAQ up almost 2%. And that's because these meta earnings, Pete, were pretty much meta fantastic. And I'm going to say shows that certain tech companies are doing really well, but you and I can cover the rest in a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you totally, though, John, because going into this, you and I never exchanged this side of things, the macro minute, fantastic futures. I'll tell you what, my notes that I took down were, it's about risk. People are willing to take it. The NASDAQ's absolutely crushing it. These tech names across the board so far, almost completely across the board, have been fantastic. The meta earnings were absolutely ripping. We're coming off of Google that finally made money in the cloud. We've got a lot of different things that are happening in a positive way. Amazon still to come tonight. You still got Apple. There's a lot of names out there still. But so far, John, they are absolutely buoying the market and pulling it up big time today.
Yep, absolutely, Pete. So the macro minute is things are pretty good, at least for some tech stocks. Yep. But we didn't even have time to get it into the rundown, Pete. But Gap stores cutting 1,800 workers. We see so many indications that the consumer is slowing, not the least of which is that the economy grew at 1.1% in Q1. They were looking for 2%. So it basically was half of what the estimate was, Pete.
Yep.
That ain't so great.
Not so good.
Let's talk about futures and fantastic futures.
Fantastic futures.
There it is.
Well, fantastic futures. The reason they are so fantastic is that there's always some future that's moving up or down pretty big, folks. Today, I'd say take a look at oats. And you might say, oats? Why? Well, oats futures are down 15% year to date, but I bet you can't find too many things that oats go into that the prices are down, even though the major input is down. So they're down another 3.5% today. That takes us down to 15.5% year to date, Pete.
Yeah, that is always interesting. We like to track all those different things, John. I'm going to give you something that neither one of us really probably pay as much attention to, and that's we obviously do with volatility, and we definitely do it when we're talking about specific areas of volatility. Sometimes we're talking about currencies. A lot of the time we're talking about equity markets. But right now I'm talking about commodity markets, the volatility of those commodity markets, which is a tradable entity and is the most volatile of the three. So a lot of reasons that go into that for reasons I'm not going to go with right now. But I can tell you this, if those that are really searching out for a little bit more volatility, go check out this. This is something you're going to want to see, these commodity volatilities. It's something that the CME rolled out, and it is a winner.
Yep. A lot of trade going into those now, Pete,
Yep.
because of exactly those inputs that Pete talked about. All right. Let's, Pete, jump right over into Helen of Troy. The reason I started with this one is it was up so big. I mean, HELE, these guys came out with quarterly earnings, 201 a share versus 189. We know that's good. The growth that the company has managed to put out, and these are beauty supplies and everything else at Helen of Troy. And they apparently are doing fantastic, Pete. Over the last 4 quarters, the company has beat the consensus estimate 4 times. So in other words, they're a perennial beater, which you'd think sooner or later people would, raise their estimates a little higher. But boy, this is a good report.
It is a good report, John, but the one thing that both of us know is oftentimes these numbers there's a little something you can read into it. So they're giving you the lower numbers and they're beating, but they're also well below where they were a year ago. And I'm talking about earnings, and I'm talking about just about every single metric that they come up with. Now, the PE looks pretty good. I will say this though, John, monstrous shorts. I think the reason why this stock is up, whatever, 23, 24%, whatever it might be right now, I think the reason it's gone up is because of those shorts. I think they're getting squeezed, and I think they're getting squeezed in a big way. This is a company, like I say, they continue to beat, but they're beating at a lower number each time, and from year ago numbers, substantially different. The volumes here, John, are extraordinary, but there's a good reason why when you look at the range of the stock, it was 81 all the way to 221 over the last year. Stock got all the way up to 101 off of today's number. It's still way off of where those numbers were. And I think that the reason is they do have some signs that maybe things aren't great, but they're better than whatever the estimates are that these analysts are putting out there.
Well, they were, in fact, Pete, short interest, I think was about 25%. It might have been bigger than that, but that was the latest number I had. All right, let's talk about Meta, Pete, because Meta was a mega beat. META, it's one that Pete has proudly owned since the IPO and held it. I have traded in and out of this one. I don't know if your performance has beat me, Pete, but I know that during certain periods, you have record outperformance, and this might be one of them, except that I talked about yesterday on our inner circle. I talked about the unusual buying of upside calls, both at the 230 strike, 235 strike, 240 strike in Meta, and look at where it is today.
Yep. Absolute monster, John, the stock. And I don't think it's done. And here's why. Okay. So their free cash flow is $15 billion. That doesn't seem like such a bad number. They absolutely crushed every number that was in front of them, John. They still are bleeding to some degree with some of the things that are going on with Meta, but there's a lot of discipline going on. And what Zuckerberg has done has literally 20,000 jobs at least have already been released. There might be more. I'm not sure that they're done with that side of things, John. I still think there are things to go. But when you look at where it trades right now, John, with the free cash flow, with the balance sheet that they've got, and where it is from a PE perspective, this thing ain't done yet. And I think there's a lot more gas in the tank. Doesn't mean it's going to continue up next week or next whatever. But I think over time, when I look at it, it still trades way too cheap. They own the industry and they're grabbing more market share all the time. Keep an eye on Reels, keep an eye on Instagram, and of course, Facebook. There's a lot going on here, and Zuckerberg's done a magnificent job.
2 billion Reels per day, folks. That's per day, 2 billion with a B. Also, an appeals court basically upheld a dismissal of Meta's antitrust case. New York had foolishly gone after them for Instagram and WhatsApp acquisition deals, Pete.
Yeah.
You think the horses maybe left the barn on that one when it's 10 years in the past?
I was going to say, doesn't a decade kind of mean something? I mean, it took them a full decade to actually say, hey, we don't really like this deal. You know what? Maybe you guys should have been on your A game. So whatever.
And why would you waste the taxpayers' money in the state of New York trying to charge them in the first place after the fact, way after the fact, and then appealing it as well? Yeah, New York, I'd love to be paying those taxes when they waste money like that. But the fact that this is a dismissal means that they're in the clear now, Pete. They've appealed it up as far as they can. They've lost at every turn.
Yeah.
Let's talk about MBLY, MBLY, Israeli-based company. I think you guys know what they do as far as self-driving and helping those car companies that use this technology. But they said, this is the CEO, Pete, said, due to a number of headwinds lowering EV demand in China, we have reduced our 2023 supervision shipment forecast, which is negatively impacting our annual financial guidance. It's down 21% and sinking, Pete.
For all the right reasons, John. When you look at this company, there is not, you almost can't find a reason to want to own it right now. I mean, I'm looking at it. By the way, it's getting hammered. It's down 20 some odd percent. 25 to 48 is the range, but it's a little bit closer to 30, 32, somewhere in that spot. But I'll tell you, John, across the board, it looks terrible. There's not one thing. They got weakening demand from EVs in China. That's pretty bad. They do have some free cash flow. I'll give them that. They also have a heck of a large number of short interest in there as well. They cut their full year guidance. I mean, there is nothing in the report that you look at where you say, you know what? I can see this, though. I could see this changing. I don't know that I see anything right now, at least, John, that's going to change about what they are doing as a company. So because of that, I feel very, very confident that this stock could go a little bit lower. They could actually probably test those 52-week lows, which is right around 25 bucks.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me, Pete.
Yeah.
And, you know, the CEO of any firm is rarely as open as this guy was. So some of us might even say he kitchen sinked it by saying what he said. Time will tell, but this is just a horrible day for MBLY shareholders.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Wolf Speed, Pete, because they basically semiconductor company that works on silicon carbide and gallium nitride for this semiconductor space. These guys, as the name sort of implies, global leader in silicon carbide technology, and obviously making things faster is what they try to do. Well, they are down 23% today. So what's working faster is the shorts are working faster and pushing this thing down hard. Revenue was 229 million, which was above street. The guidance was a loss of 17 cents versus a loss of 23. But as Pete always says, it's still a loss. So you're shortening up on the amount of money you're losing, but you're still losing.
They're losing. They hit 52-week lows today down there at towards what, 46 or something like that. Heck, it might even be lower than that now. It seemed like every tick was just one more tick that was tick-tocking to the downside. But the volumes, John, also, and you talk about that a lot of the time with these stocks, about almost triple the volume of an average day there. So a lot of volume, a lot of players trying to probably squirm out of there. Everything I looked at, gross margins were terrible, John. They used to be 34%. Now they're under 30%. So that's getting hit down. Their cash burns about 400 million. That's a big problem. When you see all the issues that they face right now, it's going to take a while, and they're going to have to make money at some point, like you and I talk about all the time. Well, it ain't yet, and it ain't coming in the future, not too soon at least. So from that perspective, this stock could go a heck of a lot lower before it maybe can find a spot and the stock actually can have some footing. But until then, I wouldn't be touching this one. It's no need. I mean, this is a falling knife, and I don't see any reason to jump in yet.
Right there with you. So we're both hands off on this one. All right, Pete. I know we got the NFL draft tonight, and we're both pretty excited about that. What are you focused on, and which players might you be most interested in?
Yeah, it's always fun, John. It's really exciting. We have our stock draft tonight as well, but we've got the actual NFL draft, which is going to be a big one. First of all, I'll start off with this, John, just because I got flack from some bozos out there who don't really understand a whole hell of a lot about what I said. So last week, I made the comments, and these guys should know better. They're in the TV world. I said, the TV ratings for the NBA are crap. They were near bottoms. And as a matter of fact, when you look, John, and you look at the All-Star game and you look at some of that, they were absolutely garbage. Now, in the playoffs, they're doing much better. They're doing much, much better when it comes to the playoffs, of course, because 82 games is too many games. People don't want to sit there. So you've got all of that. Anyway, I think I'll make this prediction for you, John.
Right.
I will say the NFL draft tonight will have triple the number one game of the night from the NBA or the NHL. It's not even something about the NHL because those numbers aren't very good at all. 1.1 million. You take a look over at the NBA, John, they're about 4 million and they're all excited about that. This number will crush them. And why is that? Because I think they'll have a lot of trades going on. We've already had trades coming into this whole thing. Carolina traded up with Chicago, got all those, moves and everything else, and they're all the way up to the number one pick to get whoever they want. I think this is the interesting thing that might even spur a few more trades, John. Houston's got number 2 and number 12. Seattle's got number 5 and number 20. The Lions have number 6 and number 18. And Philadelphia, a Super Bowl team, has number 10 and number 30. So there is a lot to it. And just remember this, there are 32 teams, which means there should be 32 picks. There are not. There are 31 picks this year because of some shenanigans with Miami. So anyway, all that being said, it's going to be a really fun night, John. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait, but I can't wait to see those numbers so that these clowns who came at me about the NBA comment, which then they came at me, John, with, well, they sold out a lot of seats in the stadiums. That has nothing to do with TV ratings as far as I know. And these were TV guys. I mean, holy crap. No wonder their networks are going down like the Titanic. It's unbelievable. They don't even understand it.
Well, Pete, I'm looking at numbers right now that are in 2018, 11.2 million, about the same in 2019. Those are millions of people watching the NFL first round. 15.6 million in 2020, 12.5 million in 2021. The 3-day average over the 3 days of the draft was over 6 million people watching. Now, you put that up against the whole NBA, and keep in mind, this is the draft. These aren't games. Some people like to argue with me, Pete, about America's pastime, and I tell them, it ain't baseball. It hasn't been baseball for a really long time.
It's past time.
Football.
It's past their time.
Yeah. But I think they'll be putting up some big numbers again, Pete, because, we've had the first round pick change hands already. Like you said, we've got Miami being blocked, eliminated from selection in the first round because of the alleged
Looks like we lost him.
Well, we might be having some issues, John, with your signal. All right, John, unfortunately, we had some issues or whatever, but we're going to take it. We've had a few issues today. I don't know if it's weather or if it's just these some of these crappy cable companies or whatever. The next one, our second one, is sticking with the NFL. How about the New York Jets? Now, the Jets did a lot in the offseason. The Jets added a lot of players. The Jets had a great defense last year. The Jets had no quarterback. And finally, their quarterback came in very, very recently after a long waited thing by a lot of fans, right? Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback of the New York Jets. He also has Alan Lazard. He got his receiver there. John, he's got Garrett Wilson. He's got Lazard. He's got tight ends that he's going to love because they're a lot like the tight ends he's always played with at Green Bay. He's got Breece Hall, a running back who's going to be recovered enough, I think, and he's going to be unbelievable for them. So that's going to be exciting. But the one thing that I think, and they've got the 15th pick in the draft, so I'm not going to be unrealistic and say, well, they're going to get this guy or that guy. I'm looking at a guy who actually they need, and he's ranked number 15 in this year's draft. Broderick Jones, tackle, Georgia, 6'6", 315. The guy's an absolute freak show. They need some more protection for him, for whoever the quarterback is. Now that it's Aaron Rodgers, of course, they need even more protection. He's never really been given a great offensive line. He's never really been given all the players that he's going to have with the Jets and a much improved defense, John, because that defense of the Jets, absolutely hands down, one of the best in the NFL. So I'm excited about the idea that Aaron will finally be able to have both a left tackle and now a right tackle playing for him, protecting him, blindside, everything else that goes into it. But I think it's going to be an outstanding pick if that's what they do, because they need to get one of those big offensive linemen to protect him. They had 42 sacks last year. It's on the middle sort of the NFL, but that's not Aaron Rodgers, cannot be sacked. If he gets sacked that many times, it'll be a one and done career at the Jets.
I agree. Well, sorry about the glitches, folks. It looks like I've got plenty of speed from the internet, but sometimes these things happen, especially when you're living on an island like I am. But we will be back Monday, so make sure you tune in for that. If you'd like to join us for the stock draft tonight, Pete, so it's a draft, but unlike the NFL, and it won't go nearly as long.
Gosh, no.
It's a stock draft, and we'll be doing that over at Market Rebellion. So check it out, marketrebellion.com. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you Monday.